Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, the War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Ukraine's military says Russian forces are very far from seizing the eastern town of Bakmut after Russia's Wagner mercenary group said Sunday it raised the Russian flag over the decimated city's administration building. This followed a weekend of heavy fighting in Bakmut and other parts of eastern Ukraine. In the nearby town of Kostiantivka, at least 6 people were reported killed from Russian shelling. This is a 69-year-old survivor.
Me and my neighbor ran out to the hallway and we hugged each other very tightly. She's bigger than me and I hugged her very tight, and we stood there while everything was shaking because of the explosions. I have no idea we have survived. There were 6 casualties. 6 people just died.
In Russia, authorities say they arrested a woman, Daria Tripova, in connection with a bombing Sunday which killed the prominent pro-war military blogger Vladlen Tatarsky in St. Petersburg. The Russian ambassador to Belarus said Moscow will station tactical nuclear weapons near Belarus's western border with NATO nations. NATO members will meet this week in Brussels, including Finland, which will officially become the newest member of the military alliance Tuesday. Meanwhile, Russia has assumed the presidency of the UN Security Council for the month in a move blasted by Ukraine as President Volodymyr Zelensky accused the body of bankruptcy. The last time Russia held the rotating presidency was in February of 2022, the month it invaded Ukraine. In Finland, the Prime Minister, Sanna Marin, has conceded after her center-left Social Democratic Party came in third in Sunday's election behind right-wing nationalist rivals. The National Coalition Party, Finland's main conservative party, won the most votes, though not enough to rule on its own, and will have to form a coalition government. The NCP ran on promises of fixing the economy. A series of severe storms fueled an estimated 11 tornadoes across the southern and midwestern U.S. over the weekend, killing at least 32 people. At least 1 million customers lost power. Homes, businesses, other structures were destroyed or badly damaged in states including Arkansas, Alabama, Indiana, Mississippi, Tennessee, and Iowa. An Arkansas high school teacher surveyed the damage in her classroom Sunday.
I've taught here 25 years, and this is my classroom. And when I walked out yesterday, I didn't realize that would be the last time I would teach in this classroom. We got out at 1:30, which was such a God blessing from our superintendent, because otherwise kids would have been on buses and teachers would have still been here, and so that would have been even more devastating.
More severe weather in the affected regions is forecast this week as scientists and the Biden administration warn such events are worsening in gravity and frequency. In Afghanistan, the Taliban has shut down a women-run radio station for broadcasting songs and music during the month of Ramadan. Sadaya Banawan, which means women's voice in Dari, was the only station led by women founded a decade ago. It's the latest rights attack from the Taliban, as women and girls have also been banned from education beyond the 6th grade and most jobs, with the United Nations warning the growing discrimination and systemic violence may amount to gender persecution, a crime against humanity. Israeli police shot and killed a Palestinian man at the entrance to the Al-Aqsa Mosque in Israeli-occupied East Jerusalem Saturday. Witnesses say soldiers fired more than 20 rounds in less than a minute after the man tried to prevent police from harassing a woman who they'd stopped on her way to the mosque. The victim, 26-year-old Mohammed Khaled al-Asibi, was a Palestinian citizen of Israel who had just finished medical school. In the occupied West Bank, a Palestinian man was fatally shot by an Israeli soldier hours later near the town of Beit Umar. Witnesses say Israeli forces would not let medics access the injured 24-year-old who bled to death. The killings came as the cabinet of Israel's far-right Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said it had approved a plan to establish a new National Guard under the control of Itamar Ben-Gvir, Israel's ultra-nationalist national security minister, who once was convicted of racist incitement against Palestinians and supporting a terrorist group. In Syria, State media is reporting that Israeli strikes on Homs province wounded 5 Syrian soldiers early Sunday. It was at least the 9th airstrike by Israel inside Syria since the start of the year. In Iran, police have arrested a mother and daughter after a viral video showed a man attacking them in a store for not covering their hair in public in the northeastern city of Shandiz. The video shows the man confronting the 2 women as they wait in line at a shop. The man, who was also apparently later arrested, appears to shout, then pours what appears to be a tub of yogurt over their heads. The women have since been charged with committing a forbidden act and flouting Iran's dress code, which requires women wear a hijab. On Saturday, the Iranian President Ibrahim Raisi reiterated women must always wear the hijab, calling it a religious necessity. The order came even as millions of Iranian women and girls continue to routinely ignore the requirement, especially in Iran's big cities. This is Malika, a 16-year-old in Tehran.
You can't throw a tub of yogurt on a woman's head and think you did something great and to guide someone in the right direction. It's that person's business. She wanted to dress like that, and she dressed however she wanted. It's no one's business.
Twitter's billionaire owner Elon Musk has ordered the social media platform to remove a badge showing verified status for the New York Times after the paper's editors refused to pay for its Twitter Blue service. This comes after Twitter instituted a pay-for-play system in which companies, nonprofits, and government institutions have to pay $1,000 a month to keep check marks showing their accounts have been verified. So far, only a few dozen accounts have seen their badges removed. Musk signaled he'd remove the Times checkmark over its coverage, which he blasted in a tweet as propaganda. Other prominent accounts, reportedly including those of White House staffers, have refused to pay for Twitter Blue. That's led to fears over misinformation and hate speech by imposter accounts on Twitter ahead of the 2024 presidential elections. Donald Trump's 2024 presidential campaign raised over $4 million in 24 hours following the news last week of his indictment by a Manhattan grand jury connected to a 2016 hush money scheme. Trump released a fundraising video Sunday, 2 days before his expected arraignment in New York.
The election was rigged and stolen, but now we're going to take back our country in 2024. If you're doing well because all of the things that I've done have brought you wealth and prosperity, or at least you're extremely comfortable, it would be really great if you could contribute to our campaign.
Trump is expected to speak from Mar-a-Lago Tuesday evening following his arraignment. Invitations have already gone out. Over the weekend, Trump lashed out against New York Supreme Court Justice Juan Merchan, who's overseeing his criminal case, claiming he, quote, hates me. It's the same judge who presided over the prosecution of the Trump Organization and CFO Alan Weisselberg. Meanwhile, former Arkansas Governor Asa Hutchinson announced Sunday he'll run for the Republican presidential nomination. Hutchinson called on Trump to withdraw from the race due to his legal troubles. As governor, Hutchinson signed a trigger law banning abortion in 2019 and made Arkansas the first state to impose work requirements for Medicaid recipients, costing over 18,000 people to access the program before a court blocked their requirement. Millions of U.S. residents are poised to lose Medicaid health insurance as protections put in place at the start of COVID-19 pandemic begin to lapse. Under a bipartisan deal reached by Congress late last year, states are allowed to remove Medicaid recipients from the rolls as early as April 1st unless they prove they still qualify. Some residents of 5 states, Arizona, Arkansas, Idaho, New Hampshire, and South Dakota, have already been kicked off Medicaid. Part of what the Biden administration estimates will ultimately be 15 million people losing benefits, including millions of children. The FDA has approved the opioid overdose drug Narcan to be sold over the counter. Narcan, a quick-acting Naloxone nasal spray, could become available in pharmacies as well as convenience stores and gas stations by late summer. Opioid overdoses killed over 81,000 people in 2021. It's not yet known how much manufacturer Emergent Biosolutions will charge for Narcan. Advocates are calling for the life-saving drug to be distributed for free. Democratic Senator John Fetterman of Pennsylvania has checked out of Walter Reed Hospital after receiving inpatient treatment for depression since mid-February. Fetterman is scheduled to return to the Senate April 17th after the two-week holiday recess. In a statement, Senator Fetterman urged others with mental health challenges to seek help. He spoke candidly about his depression during an interview on CBS's Sunday Morning.
It's like you just won the biggest, race in the country. And the whole thing about depression is that objectively you may have won, but depression can absolutely convince you that you actually lost. And that's exactly what happened. And that was the start of a downward spiral.
Senator Fetterman had a stroke while he was running for the Senate against Mehmet Oz, but still won. California will require half of all heavy trucks sold by 2035 to be electric as it moves to phase out diesel trucks. The Environmental Protection Agency on Friday granted waivers for California to set its own truck pollution standards that are stricter than federal ones. Last year, California passed a measure requiring all new passenger vehicles sold to be fully electric by 2035. Transportation accounts for some 40% of California's greenhouse gas emissions. Supporters of political prisoner Mumia Abu Jamal are raising alarm after a judge on Friday denied his request for a new trial. Philadelphia Judge Lucretia Clemens dismissed evidence the case was tainted by judicial bias, police and prosecutorial misconduct, and that key witnesses were bribed or coerced. Mumia Abu Jamal is 68 years old. He suffers from numerous health problems. The journalist and former Black Panther has maintained his innocence for the 4 decades he's been in prison after being convicted of murdering a police officer. A federal court blocked Tennessee's highly contested law targeting drag performance on Friday, just hours before it would have gone into effect. The temporary injunction came in response to a lawsuit filed by LGBTQ group Friends of George's, which argued the legislation is overly broad and violates the First Amendment. The measure is the second major legislative attack on the trans community in Tennessee. The state also banned gender-affirming health care for trans youth last month. And queer and trans youth led actions across the United States Friday, marking International Transgender Day of Visibility, and amid intensifying discrimination, violence, and anti-trans laws pushed by Republicans. Here in New York, hundreds took to the streets in a march organized by NYC Youth for Trans Rights. Democracy Now! Producers Tamari Astudio and Maria Taracena were there and spoke to 17-year-old Raven.
It's so amazing to look around and see people like me that have had the same experiences as me, who know what it's like to be trans. And it's so great to just, watch everybody be happy and be themselves in a safe place. I'm the happiest I've been in a really, really long time here in this space with these people. And I think that it's so good for people who think that they're alone to know that they have people out there, people fighting for them, people fighting with them, people on their side. Because, a lot of them just don't have that. They go through so much, and gathering around, being able to look at people and hug people and talk to people that are like them is something that can really heal a heart.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report.